Madeleine McCann's family has been harassed by Julia Wandelt for the last few years, and now she's officially been found guilty of harassment in a court of law. Julia and her 61-year-old co-conspirator Karen Sprague were in court on stalking and harassment charges against the McCann family. Now, the McCann family has issued a statement, and Julia Wandelt and Karen have been issued restraining orders against the family. Both Julia and Karen were found not guilty of stalking, but Julia was convicted of harassing the McCann family. Now, she was sentenced to the maximum time allowed to give her, which was 6 months, but she's already been serving longer than that in prison right now while waiting for her trial to start. The McCann family was also issued restraining orders against both Julia and Karen. Julia ended up getting a restraining order that is going to last indefinitely, and Karen was given one for 5 years. The McCann family has not previously spoken out about the situation of harassment and stalking by Julia Wandelt until now. They released this statement on November 7th saying, "Despite the jury's guilty verdict of harassment, we take no pleasure in the result. Like most people, we did not want to go through a court process and only wanted the harassment to stop. The decision to prosecute was taken by the Crown Prosecution Service based on the evidence gathered by the police. We hope Ms. Wandelt will receive the appropriate care and support she needs, and any vulnerability will not be exploited by others. If anyone has new evidence relating to Madeleine's disappearance, please pass this on to the police at Operation Grange, signed Kate and Jerry McCann." Anyone who has followed this case for any length of time will recognize this face. This was Fia, the alleged private detective who ended up going to Poland, meeting with Julia Wandelt, and then bringing her back to her own home in LA, where she was her spokesperson, even taking her on Dr. Phil. This relationship did not end well at all. They ended up getting into a huge fight. Julia went back to Poland. Fia remained in LA, and the two of them were throwing accusations against each other for weeks after this. Well, we haven't heard much from Fia since then. She refers to herself as the Persian Media, but since Julia's guilty verdict, she has now started to post again. She shared this soon after Julia's guilty verdict arrived, saying, "Julia Wandelt found guilty. Today, I begin sharing the real story, backed by evidence, facts, and official findings. The truth will finally be revealed. Dr. Fia Johansson." Then she shared this post, which it looks like she made herself, but she's referring to herself in the third person, saying, "After 2 years of silence, she will speak out. The real truth about the criminal Polish woman. Guilty verdict. The world finally knows the truth." Fia also shared some articles from The Sun. Now, you may recall that Fia did a lot of interviews and things with tabloids like The Sun. This one says, "How could she? Fake Maddie, Julia Wandelt, hid bombshell evidence that proved she wasn't missing girl under mattress for 2 years. American investigator Dr. Fia Johansson has shared a trove of smoking gun evidence Wandelt hid at her house." According to this article, Fia is claiming that 2 years after Julia moved out of her home, that a cleaning lady, while making the bed Julia slept in while she was there, ended up finding this bombshell evidence that allegedly Julia had hid under the mattress. So Julia had moved into Fia's home in LA for about 3 weeks in early 2023, and Fia was doing a lot of lives and postings and going on the Dr. Phil show, trying to allegedly find out Julia's true identity because she believed she was Madeleine McCann. Now Fia claims that she's located Julia's medical records under the mattress of this supposed bed Julia stayed in. However, if you followed this case, you know that when Julia fled Fia's home and went back to Poland, one of the accusations that Julia was making against Fia was that Fia had her medical records and would not return them. Well, according to this article, Dr. Fia Johansson is now claiming that they were located under this mattress and that Julia had hid them there. Not surprising, in this medical journal, of course, were all of Julia's records from her birth onwards. There was her height, weight, vaccination records, health concerns from her birth, as well as family photos of Julia. Fia is now sharing these photos of Julia when she was a young child. This is Julia when she was 4 months old with Julia's mother, who looks just like Julia. This is Julia when she was born, and a picture of her with her grandmother. One of her and her father when she was just 3 years old, looking nothing like Madeleine McCann. A better picture of her when she was 3 years old with her stepmother, and again, looking nothing like Madeleine McCann. And here's one again of her a little bit older with her father. This is the book of medical records, which again, Julia claimed Fia would not give back to her, and Fia is claiming her housekeeper found under a mattress. Fia now is coming out saying that Julia, when she stayed at her home, watched the McCann family documentary over 100 times. And she says that she got this information as well from her housekeeper. Fia, who says she has shared all of this information with U.S. law enforcement, says that she wanted to share the smoking gun evidence in a bid to show that Wandelt is a dangerous and unpredictable individual who was fully aware of her lies and acted deliberately for fame and financial gain. She claims that when she flew to Poland in February of 2023, this is when she first met Julia after the launch of her I Am Madeleine McCann Instagram page, that she quickly established in a matter of days that the 21-year-old was not Madeleine after talking to her parents, her older teachers, and her medical staff. Yet Fia shared none of that with the public or law enforcement. Instead, Fia encouraged Julia to go on Dr. Phil, to continue posting on websites and social media and do lives with her, claiming she was in fact Madeleine McCann. She's trying to claim that the only reason she brought Julia to her home was because she felt sorry for her and thought she was a vulnerable young woman, and she offered for her to come to stay at her home to get away from the death threats and all of the online hate she was receiving. Fia did do a DNA test on Julia when she was staying with her in LA. They recorded the whole process, including shipping out the DNA test. However, neither of them would reveal the results of this testing until they had this huge fallout. Julia had moved back to Poland, and then Fia took to her social media to claim that the test results came back, and she did reveal the results, showing, of course, that Julia was not Madeleine McCann. Julia, however, denied those results, said they were rigged and that it didn't happen and the results were faked. However, during the court proceedings that she just had for stalking and harassment, they did another DNA test on her and revealed all the results in the courtroom, proving again 100% that she is not, in fact, Madeleine McCann. In the end, she said that she's still 50-50 on whether she's Madeleine McCann or not. It was also revealed in court that Julia in the past has also claimed to be two other missing young girls as well. The Madeleine McCann case seemed to stick with her and she ran with it. Unfortunately, she did have a number of followers who believed her and would send her money through GoFundMe accounts and other means. Julia will now be released from prison since she's already served the 6 months time while awaiting for trial. She's going to have a record since she was found guilty of harassment, and she's also going to have the restraining order against her so that she cannot harass the McCann family again, and it is indefinite.